Good morning, Year 10. I hope you've had a lovely week and you're back into the swing of things with your home learning. This is your solutions video for your 20 questions from week 8 of Learning from Home. So first up, we've got some subtraction of fractions. So we need to have a common denominator in order to subtract fractions. So the first thing we're going to do is times the bottom two together so that they are a common denominator. So 3 times 2 is 6, so we'll pop that at the bottom of our two fractions. Now, this side, to get to 6, we've times by 2, so we're going to have to times all of that side by 2. And this side we times everything by 3, okay? So 2 times 2 is 4, whilst 3 times 1 is 3. So then you would have 4 over 6 minus 3 over 6, so you just subtract the numerators and you'd be left with 1 over 6, okay? So that's your answer for that one. So next up is some multiplying fractions. Now this one's super simple. All you do is multiply the top together and multiply the bottom together. So 4 times 2 is 8, so 8 goes as the numerator, and 7 times 3 is 21. So you would have 21 as your denominator. Now that is as simple as it gets, okay? For some, you might need to simplify it by finding the highest common factor of both the numerator and the denominator, but not for this one. So your final answer for that one is 8 over 21. Okay, so for the next one, it says estimate, okay? So we're going to have to round these two numbers. So if we, for this one, let's say round it to the nearest 10, okay? So if we take 654 and we go to the tens column, which is this one, we are presented with a 5. Now, we're going to either keep that 5 or we are going to change it, okay? So if the number after it is 4 or below, we're going to leave it as a 5. If it's 5 or above, we're going to change it up to a 6. But to round this to the nearest 10, we would get 650, okay? Because the number after it is below, is 4 or below. So we're adding. So 36, again, we're in the tens column, which is here. The tens column, which is here. The 3 is in the tens column. So 36 rounded to the nearest 10. Well, the number after 3 is a 6, which is above 5. So that means you would round it up to 40. Then you would add those two together and we'd get 690 as our rounded answer. Okay, so for this one, they've gone with one significant figure rounding to each, okay? So 0.62 to one significant figure, which would be this one, would be 0.6, and then we would times that by 50, because that's to one significant figure, and then once we've done that, we would divide it by 3. So 0.6 times 50 would be 30, okay, so that equals 30. So now you've got 30 divided by 3, which would equal 10, okay, so that would be your final answer there. So the next one says increase, so that means get bigger, £200 by 5%. So the first thing we need to do is find 5%. But 5% is a bit tricky, so let's find 10% first. So 10% of 200. To find 10%, all we have to do is divide by 10. So we would do 200, divide it by 10, and that equals 20. Okay, so 10% equals 20. Now 5% is just half of 10%, so we just need to half 20. So we would get 10, wouldn't we? Okay, so now we know that 5% is equivalent to £10. All we've got to do is increase it, so we've got to add it, okay? So we've got to do 200 plus the 10. So the final answer would be £210. Okay, now the next one says decrease, okay? So that means we're going down. So the first thing we've got to do is find the 20%, okay? So £580, let's find 10% first, okay? So 10%, as we know, we just divide it by 10, okay? So 580 divided by 10, we just take off that 0. So that would equal £58. Now, if we wanted to find 20%, all we would have to do is take our 58 and we would just double it, okay? So we would times it by 2, okay? So 20% would equal £116. Okay, now it says decrease. So what I'm going to have to do now is take my original amount, 580, and take away the 116 that I've just figured out, okay? So 580 take away 116 is £464. So that's our answer there, okay? £464. Okay, on to finding the nth term. So, did a few of these in the past couple of weeks. The first thing we have to do is figure out how we get from one to the other. So between 10 and 18, what's the difference? Well, we've added 8. What about the next one? Well, we've added 8 again. And for the last one, we've added 8. So whatever your difference is here between your sequence, you write that first, then you write the letter n. And then you've got to ask yourself, how do you get from this number to the first number in the sequence? Well, to get from 8 to 10, I add 2. So now I know that my nth term is a10 plus 2. We could test it maybe for the fourth one in the sequence. So 8 times 4, because n is replaced by 4 because I want to find the fourth number in the sequence, is 32. And then plus the 2 equals 34, so I know I am correct. Next one then, so what's the difference here? Well, we're adding 6 here, and we're adding 6 here, and we're adding 6 here. So you know that the sequence is going up in a constant way, okay, so that's why it's a linear sequence. So you take your difference of 6, you write your n, so that's the number in the sequence, and then you ask yourself, how do I get from this 6 to the first number in the sequence? Well, this time I add 2 again. So this time it's 6n plus 2. Let's test it for the third number in the sequence. So if I put 3 where n is, I would do 6 times 3 is 18 plus 2 equals 20. So again, I know that I am correct. Moving on then, so this one says solve 2x minus 5 equals 1. So when it says solve, it just wants me to figure out what x is. So I need to get all my x's on one side and all my numbers on the other side. And I do that by doing the opposite. So on this side, I've got 2x minus 5. And actually, I don't want that minus 5. I want to get rid of it. So to get rid of minus 5, I do the opposite. I add 5. And I've got to do that to both sides. So if I add 5 to this side, all I'm left with is 2x, because I've got rid of the minus 5 by adding 5. And on this side, if I add 5 to 1, I get 6. So now I know that 2x equals 6. But I don't want 2 x's, I only want 1. So I'm going to have to divide by 2 so that I've only got x, and I have to do the same on this side. So that would mean that I have x equaling 3. Moving on then, this one's a little bit more difficult because we've got x on both sides, but you should have been doing these on Maths Watch over the week. So let's get rid of the minus 5 to start with, because I don't like negatives, and if I take away 13, I'm going to end up with a negative on this side. So let's take away the 5 to get rid of this. Okay, so if I take away 5, all I'm left with on this side is 6x. And if I take away 5 from this side, I've still got my 4x. But if I take away 5 from 13, that leaves me with 8. Okay, so now I've got 6x equals 4x plus 8. But I've still got an x and a number on this side, and I don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to take away the 4x, because you've got to imagine there's a plus sign there if there's nothing there. So if I take away 4x from this side, I get 2x, and that means all I'm left with on this side is the number 8. But once again, I've got 2 x's, and I don't want 2 x's, I only want 1. So I'm going to have to divide by 2 on this side and divide by 2 on this side, leaving me with x on this side, and then 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay, so that's the answer to that one. So the next one is just a substitution, okay? So all it means is it tells you what y is, and then you've just got to put y into what it's given you, okay? But this one involves some BIDMAS, okay? So if we write out BIDMAS, I'm only going to write BIDM, okay? Because we don't need A and S because there's no addition or subtraction. So there's no brackets, but there are indices. So we have to do the indice first, okay? So 4 is what y is, so we would do 4 squared first, and that would equal 16, okay? So now I've done my indice, there's no division, but there is multiplication. So now I've got my 16, I've got to times it by 2, okay? So I've got to do 16 times 2 equals 32, and that's our final answer for this one. Okay, so for this one, it's the same again. So we've got no brackets, but we do have indices, okay? So we are going to have to do minus 3 squared. Now, when you've got two negatives, they make a positive. So minus 3 times minus 3 is actually positive 9, okay? So that's 9. Then I can do, I haven't got any division, but I've got my multiplication. So then I can do my 2 times my 9, okay? So 2 times 9 equals 18. Let's get rid of that 1 because that's confusing. So